What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are back with another episode of Lions Latest, going through the latest Detroit Lions news. And today, we have an adjusted contract to discuss. One of the largest cap hits the Detroit Lions had for 2024 has been restructured and has been dropped to give the Detroit Lions a little bit of salary cap relief. So let's get it started. Welcome, everybody, to our video. Glad you guys are here. And yes, man, we are back with another episode of Lions Latest, going through the latest Detroit Lions news. And today, I thought this would be a great opportunity to update the Lions' current cap space situation. A large move with one of their largest cap hits this season, so we'll start there first, but then also update what the Lions' current salary cap space is without knowing what some of the salary cap hits are going to be. So there's actually just a lot that we don't know, but I'll tell you what we do know and what we don't know. So let's just get right into it. So we're going to go over here on Over the Cap, use this salary cap calculator, and as you can see, the cap space is currently $34.277 million. So you're looking at that, and you're probably thinking, dang, that's a lot of money to spend. That's pretty darn good. That's pretty darn good, Lions. However, that's not going to last because once some of the details come in for these databases, those numbers are going to start to drop. The other thing that I'll point to that as well is, of course, you always have, like, for example, the draft class, which is going to impact things. It is important to keep in mind the top 51 cutoff. Okay, that's not usually all of your picks, usually your top couple, but the top 51 cutoff is crucial during the offseason, where if your player's cap hit does not fall into the top 51, it does not count towards the salary cap. Okay, so we don't have to count every single contract necessarily just because they were a draft pick and say that their cap is going to count, because they have to fall into the top 51 for that to be the case during the offseason like this when we're going through the salary cap. So just keep that in mind because I'm going to give you a good example to that. However, the big news is right here first, and we'll start there, and it's with Carlton Davis. And as you can see, Carlton Davis now, his cap is set at $9.852 million. So what the heck did the Lions do here? Because originally this was $14.35 million. Big point of his contract is he had $14 million in the base salary. Because that was the case, it opened a lot of flexibility within this contract to potentially restructure and open up some cap space if the Lions wanted to, because so much money was just sitting in base salary, even without having years left on his contract. Now, there's really only one way to do that with how the Lions did it in terms of a signing bonus, and that would be creating void years, and that's exactly what the Lions did. So if we look over here at Carlton Davis's contract currently, you can see that the cap number $9.852 million is now there instead of $14.35 million. What the Lions did was they took $14 million, which it was a base salary, took $6 million of that, converted that into a prorated signing bonus. As you can see here, it is now spread out through 4 seasons as the Lions added 3 void years. Now, what's key to keep in mind about this, and maybe this is something that's pretty obvious, but for whatever reason, I would always get confused on this, or I would always forget this. This does count towards this year as well. So it doesn't just save $6 million on the cap number, because $1.5 million still goes to this year. So you're essentially saving $4.5 million on the cap number, and then they spread it out through 3 years. So it does include the current year of his contract as well for that bonus. Now, the other key to this is that the Detroit Lions, of course, have a real opportunity to extend Carlton Davis. If he plays well this season, if he's pretty healthy this season, I pretty much expect the Lions would love to extend Carlton Davis to keep him around after giving up a 3rd-round pick to bring him in. I think the Lions would love to make that happen. He's only 27 years old. And if that does happen, while they'll still have to account for that $4.5 million cap number that they set out there, it won't just be dead money. Like it is dead money right now. If the season were to end, the Detroit Lions just didn't bring him back, they would still have to pay that $4.5 million for the next year's salary cap, even though he wouldn't necessarily be on the team. So the fact that there's a real opportunity that this player gets extended beyond this season makes it so that you still have to account for that $4.5 million. It would just accelerate as if his contract was just up. It wouldn't be 1.5 each year. It all accelerates together, smushes together, it becomes 4.5, just like the number is set right here. However, into his new contract, you understand that that's part of it, so you can kind of work your way around it. So that's, I expect, what the Lions are trying to kind of keep open here is the real possibility that, hey, we might just extend this guy. So it's not a huge deal to necessarily throw some void years on this contract. Also, as you can see, there still is an out for the Lions this year, but it's not a great out. They're not probably going to go that direction. I mean, I guess if they wanted to, they could, but they're probably not going to go to that direction. So anyways, Carlton Davis restructured his contract, saving the Lions $4.5 million in cap space. Now, the key to this is that there's so many players that are not included here. There are a few of the free agent moves that are included on this list. First off, you go down a little bit, and you're going to find Dan Skipper right here, $1.01 million cap hit for the season. So he is included. And you also notice that $1.10 million does fall within the top 51 cutoff. So he does count towards the the salary cap number. Now, the top 51 cutoff is so crucial because of this. So, Donovan Peoples-Jones, we know he got a one-year deal up to $2 million. So, his cap number will probably be somewhere a little bit less than $2 million, 1 point something. So, if you took Donovan Peoples-Jones, and let's just say, hypothetically, let's make it all base salary. Let's say its cap number is $1.5 million this season. And when you transact that, it doesn't necessarily just take off $1.5 million from cap space, because what that does is essentially going to drop down a player from the top 51 cutoff and insert Donovan Peoples-Jones, because we have over 51 players. It's one key to keep in mind, right? It'd be like $600K instead of being the $1.5 million, is that you're going to continue to push players down so you don't lose as much cap space sometimes as that number just suggests. However, there's so many players that are not included on this list, and I think they put all of them at the bottom here. As you can see, two of the bigger ones, Marcus Davenport, who was originally reported 1 year, $6.5 million, is not included on this list. Now, again, I don't expect this cap number necessarily to be $6.5 million, but it definitely could be on the higher side unless the Lions put void years there, but it's up to 6.5, so it'd probably be a little bit less than that. DJ Reader, who signed 2 years, $30+ million. DJ Reader definitely going to be probably pushing somewhere around $10 million cap. It could be less than that based on how Lions set up contract. They could have really just pushed it in a year or two, but it could be closer to $10 million cap. Those would be your two big ones. Then, of course, you have Cleo Dorsey. Cap number's probably not going to be huge there. Scott Daly, cap number is probably not going to be huge there. Donovan Peoples-Jones, cap number going to be a little bit higher, but it's not going to be huge there either. So it's really two of these deals that we're kind of just waiting for to get a good sense of where the Lions salary cap number actually is. The new ones that are included, however, include guys like Amik Robertson, $2.85 million cap hit this season. They backloaded his contract. And as you can see with a guy like Amik Robertson, it's pretty much a similar type of deal to what we usually do with a lot of our deals, which is the first year cap number is a lot lower, $2.85 million. Next year jumps up to $6.4 million, and that's where you create your out within the contract. You see only 1.65 would be dead money, which would come just through this prorated signing bonus. And then also on top of that, his base salary jumps up by $3 million. So that's where you get a much better cap savings if you were to move off of him. It also can, again, create flexion and create flexibility for the Detroit Lions if they were just trying to lower that cap number, or potentially create an extension as well. But this is typically how the Lions set up their contracts. They kind of give themselves an out at the back end of the deal, while at the same time on the front end of the deal, usually it's a lower cap number because they create a much lower base salary, and then you're really just worried about usually the guaranteed salary, which in this case, you're actually losing money if you were to move off of this player. The guaranteed salary kind of goes away in the second year. You also throw in the fact that you have the prorated signing bonus. So you have the base salary and the prorated signing bonus, which will create the cap number, but it's guaranteed. So there's not really an out this season, but then all of a sudden next season, a lot of that becomes base salary. You get off the guaranteed salary, and now you're really just looking at the prorated signing bonus, which would be the dead cap. So this is how Lions do a lot of their deals. Nothing really crazy here, but as you can see, the Lions leaving cap space for the current. They did the same thing with Graham Glasgow. Graham Glasgow goes from $2.687 million right here to $7.4 million next season. So as usual, the Lions did that with one of their 3-year deals. You also have a guy like Emmanuel Mosley, 1-year deal, no void years, $2.169 million cap hit. So some of these we are getting in, but there's others that we're waiting on. There's a couple of big ones that we're kind of waiting on. So we don't know exactly what this cap space number will look at. I would say maybe like worst case, it's like 16 million, right? If the Lions worst case, maybe somewhere around like 16 million, closer like $20 million in cap space, maybe even higher than that. Typically, you can find more ways to create cap space if you need to create cap space. Now, for the Lions right now, a lot of that could be, Jared Goff could be an option because of where you look at his cap number is. Now, that'd be throwing void years, so that's something to keep in mind because he's on the last year of his contract, so you'd be throwing void years onto that deal. So there is ways to still open up cap space if the Lions felt like they needed to open up cap space, but they felt good with the 4.5 clearly. So what move could be on the way? I think there's a lot of things that could be on the way. You could always look to add more tackle depth. I think the Lions could do that. They may not. We haven't really seen them do that necessarily in free agency over the last 2 seasons, like adding a veteran offensive tackle, but I think that's always still an option. Guard depth, even though I don't see necessarily starting level players that are out there that you'd feel good about the future, you always can talk about guard, center, interior offensive lineman depth. Offensive line depth in general, I'm always on board with that. So if Lions want to do that, I'm on board. Edge rushers. There aren't a lot of great edge rushers out there right now. There's a couple that are more productive than others, but you're kind of getting like a modest type of edge defender at this point in time. Maybe a guy that's flashed, or maybe he's giving you good stretches. So keep an eye on that potentially, even though I don't think there's a lot of great options out there. That's an option. At the receiver position, of course, you still have a guy like Josh Reynolds, but at the same time, there's other names as well. I think Josh Reynolds is probably top of the market. He'd be the best receiver in the market right now for me personally. Obviously, got guys like Mike Williams as well. So receiver, kind of keep an eye on that, and then also safety depth, because safety is pretty deep as of right now in terms of just the group of players that are still available. And behind Kirby Joseph and Ife Melifonwu, Lions could look to add some depth. I mean, for the most part, everything's kind of open free agency. Like, they could really go add depth anywhere they wanted to, but those are kind of the 5 that I'm keeping my eye on. So with that being said, I'm going to leave it right there. Carlton Davis has restructured the Lions, opened up a little bit of cap space, and I'm going to leave it there. Let me know your thoughts, comments below. Thank you, Brad, for watching, and I'm out.